Hello, everybody. Justin Stivers. Thank you guys for listening or watching another episode of the Stivers Show. Very excited about my guest today, Monica Vigues Pitan, Executive Director of Legal Services of Greater Miami. I'll let her, kind of explain what she does. I'm sure most of you all listening, watching, are familiar with legal services, know a lot of the great work that they do. I didn't realize how large it was that you guys have 30 plus attorneys and staff and all that. So, Monica, I know we've been trying to set this up for a little while, and then a pandemic got in the way, and all this other stuff. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I won't describe what I do because it changes on whatever needs to get done that day, but the organization, which I know what you were referring to. So Legal Services of Greater Miami, we've been around for over 50 years now, which in Miami is a pretty long time. We were founded in 1966, and really it has a pretty focused mission. It's not just providing legal services. People think, oh, you're just there to provide all sorts of legal services, which we do. But really the mission is to remove legal barriers to economic prosperity and stability. And our organization, it's kind of cool, it was founded out of the war on poverty during LBJ and all that stuff. So to this day, 50 years later, we still look at our work through that lens. And so it's what are the legal issues that people that are living in poverty or low income are having, that if we remove those barriers, they would provide more economic stability. So what do we do on a regular basis? As you mentioned, we have about 30 attorneys at any given time. Full-time attorneys, I always get this question, are they all volunteers? No, they're actually 100% salaried attorneys. And then we have, overall, our organization has 60 employees, including the 30. So in between support staff, intake unit, we have 60 employees. So we're a medium-sized, decent-sized nonprofit. We help people in a lot of different legal areas. The most overwhelming need we saw even before the pandemic, and I anticipate that it'll stay the same now once cases start coming in after the end of the moratorium, is housing. We see a lot of people, Miami-Dade before the pandemic had an affordable housing issue, or crisis, I should say. And so it was very common to see a lot of people coming in for different kinds of either eviction defense or what we call conditions cases, but it's basically people that are living in substandard housing and the landlord, refuses to fix the property. And so before the pandemic, that was about 60% of the work that we saw coming into our organization. I anticipate that it'll be a significant increase now. There's, all sorts of policy think tanks and putting out data on the pandemic and poverty, and I think we've all seen different numbers. One number that really stayed with us because it's our work is in Florida. So not Miami-Dade, but in Florida, there's expected in the next 4 months filings of over 850,000 evictions. For Miami-Dade, that could be a huge issue. And as we've all learned, our home is really important during this pandemic. Not only that it's a safe place to be, but the fact that you can even remain there at all, it's always been a safety issue to have a safe home, but I think even more so now we're seeing that it's a health issue because Miami-Dade, going into a shelter right now, communal living is not where people want to be. It could be a health crisis fairly quickly. So we do a significant amount of housing. We also have a consumer unit. People often think that all of our clients are unemployed. That's just not true. Majority of our clients are employed at any given time, but they're still living in poverty. And so, but with income sometimes comes consumer issues. So there's identity theft. South Florida is the identity theft capital of the world. We often hear it. And so some of our clients actually have great credit, and when their identity is stolen, it's a problem. And we also do foreclosure defense, which we're expecting, unfortunately, a spike in those cases in the next few months. Foreclosures take a little longer to get to filings than evictions would. Another statistic that we heard was that over about 390,000 families in Florida are already behind on mortgage payments. So, I've been at Legal Services since 2003, so I was here during the Great Recession and the foreclosure crisis then, and I'm hoping it doesn't turn into that, but we are prepared to handle, our community needs. We've been through this, in other words, is what I'm trying to say. And so then we also help one area that people often don't think of as a legal issue It's actually where I practiced for 15 years with the organization before I became executive director, is our health and income maintenance unit. And so, there's a lot of public benefits or government benefits that are available to people as a safety net. You have things like, it's now referred to as SNAP, also known as food stamps, Medicaid, which is a huge help for people that need it, especially now. Social Security disability for those people that have a health condition that's preventing them from working. And so if you're denied any of those benefits, you can appeal. And people often don't think that's something that an attorney can help you with, and we can. And so and even if you have access to healthcare, if you have Medicaid, Medicaid must cover certain therapies and prescriptions, and sometimes it might get denied, and you could appeal the denial of that health coverage as well. The same way that if you have your own private health insurance through your employer and they deny, let's say, prior authorization of a surgery, you can appeal it. Similar rules, I should say, apply for Medicaid. And so we will often represent people to appeal the denial of coverage of healthcare. So that's just and we also do special education cases, which during this time of virtual learning is going to be a challenge for a lot of our parents / clients of kids with special needs. And we're sort of navigating that process with them, because I think it's a challenge for everybody at this point. So that's sort of a mishmash of everything that we do. I probably missed a couple of things, but I just wanted to get the picture that it is a wide variety. But if you notice, most of the stuff focused on economic issues, whether it was income, housing, access to income, and that sort of thing.
Well, you've got your hands full, and they're about to be more full, it sounds like, in the coming months. Before we kind of unpack that, I'm curious. What you said, you were working with legal services for 15 years. Was that your? I know we're both Law grads.
Right.
So was this first job right out of law school, or?
This was actually my second job in law school, and then I stayed on. So I actually got this job. Well, this is a very funny story. First, so law school is 2 summers. For a summer of 1 year, I sent a letter to legal services. I don't even know if I should be saying this. Sent a letter to legal services offering offering myself to volunteer, and I got rejected. So I always laugh about that. Clearly, our standards remain high. But my second summer, I worked out of town, but UM has this great program. It was a Hope Fellowship then. I think it has a similar name now. And I applied to be a Hope Fellow on the Homeless Legal Assistance Project here at Legal Services of Greater Miami, and I got selected. And it was an incredible, incredible experience. I grew up in Miami. My parents are both Cuban. I was born here. They came in their teens, and they provided for my sister and I this like amazing sheltered middle-class life that I never, wanted for everything. Didn't take the whole like European vacations and stuff, but we had our annual trip to Disney, like every, good South Floridian, and a cruise every once in a while. And I never wanted for anything. And working at legal services and another nonprofit in law school, even before that here, I saw a completely different side of Miami-Dade. And I just thought, my parents came here, and they tell us when they first got here, not first got here, but when they first got married, so they got married in their 20s, they applied for food stamps, got it, I think, for like a year, were able to buy the house that they still live in. They bought it for $48,000. And it's in a Little Gables area. So, I mean, it's not, it's a nice area. And they've always instilled in us this concept of like, there were programs that benefited us and helped us get ahead, and it enabled us to provide a better life. And I just thought, if my parents had gotten here in the time that I was working on legal services, they wouldn't have been afforded. And I don't know what it was about the community that had changed. It's just harder. I think cost of living is more expensive, whatever the reason is. And I just thought we could do better. And I just wanted to be part of an organization that was trying to do better by the community. I think that's what we do on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. So one of the things you were, kind of talking, I think, in the beginning is that there's probably a little bit of a stigma out there, right? Of these, just thinking evictions, like, people just, whatever people think about them, maybe they're not working, or they're just abusing the system, or whatnot. But I'm guessing that's not been your experience in a lot of the people that are coming in to help you, to ask for help.
No, I mean, it's not been our experience at all. I think people that find themselves, especially in eviction, they're struggling to keep a roof over their family's head and to provide for them like any of us would. And so I think so no, I mean, just a flat, that has not been our experience. And there's often, but I know what you're speaking of, I guess. And we encounter that sometimes in the community. I was just tell people, like, just engage with us and learn more about the organization and the clients we serve, and you'll see that that's not the case. We have a lot of pro bono attorneys that work with us, and I don't think they come with that concept of our clients. I think they come wanting to help, but I always think they're very surprised about, it's not just, because when you say somebody's living in poverty, it's like very in the abstract, and living in poverty does sound tough, so I don't mean to make it, but when you talk about like the day-to-day stuff, it's like, that means that you don't have a car and you have to get on 2 buses to get your kid to the daycare and then also get to your low-paid job. And when the bus runs late and you're late to pick up your child in daycare, you have to pay extra. And with all that, you get called in the middle of the day because your child is sick. I mean, I get called in the middle of the day because my child is sick and I have to run over, not anymore, to the school, and I pick them up. But if I had to do that and I was in a bus and I'm an hourly worker and I'm losing my wages, and sort of those daily challenges and what a grind it is. And so when you're serving this client population, you sometimes have to be a little more flexible and understanding that they have other challenges that your traditional paying client, I don't know why I use air quotes, but like your traditional clients wouldn't have. If I tell you I have resource, I'm well resourced. If I tell you I'm going to be somewhere at 11, I might be 15 minutes late, but I'm not, usually an hour late, and that's where I think it becomes enlightening, because you start seeing that it's not just that you have less resources to get through the day. It's like, what does that mean on the daily in terms of your life and for your family and your kids? And it's really challenging. There's all these studies that to get yourself out of poverty, you have to be near perfect. And I think very few of us can claim that. I know I can. And so I think that's something to keep in mind when we're serving our clients.
I several years ago, I was pretty involved with Big Brother, Big Sister, and I had a little who lived in a community. And you go to the community there and you're like, man, like this would be tough to get out of. Not that it's impossible, but it's the cards are stacked against you. I mean, it would be tough.
Right. People give examples of people that raise themselves out of really dire situations. And that is great and admirable, but I think it's a very high standard to expect everybody to operate at that level.
Right. Yeah. To some extent, it's like an athlete. Like, yes, you can become a professional athlete.
That's exactly right. I hope it's a little more hopeful than that, but yeah, I think that's a great analogy. I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
When things are stacked, if you go for the child, that they say, oh, education is everything. Yes. But if you're going to school and you're hungry and, the kids have been home for a long time now, and yes, they had those drive-through sort of pickup meals, but it's not the same. And a lot of our clients get their breakfast and their lunch at school. I mean, these are all, they're all, no one issue is usually like the ends all be all, but those things add up during the day, whether you're the child or the parent trying to provide for your family in those circumstances.
Yeah. So how does, I mean, I think you said this was started in the 70s, is that right?
66.
60. So been around for a long time, obviously name recognition, but do you find, is there an issue with people not knowing your resources, that the resources are available to you? Is that a concern or no?
Yes, it is actually, because sometimes, especially times like now, because I'll say there are certain zip codes or neighborhoods that have higher poverty rates, and we obviously do a lot of outreach to those communities. But there's there's two issues. Even within those communities, people sometimes often assume that they don't qualify for our services because they work, and that's just not true. We have income limits, absolutely. To sort of gauge it a little bit, most of our clients are living at or below the poverty level, so that for a family of 4, I think it's about 26,000, so it's about thereabouts. But we can, for several reasons, go much higher. Well, relatively speaking, much higher. We can go up to 200% of the federal poverty level in a lot of instances. If there's, if there's health issues or there's other exceptions, and that gets you up to about 200% is about 50,000 for a family of 4. So it is not high, to be clear, especially in Miami-Dade, but it is more than what some people assume. Some people assume you have to have 0 income to qualify for a service. That's not true. And then additionally, there's what unfortunately, a whole lot of newly eligible clients, we call them. A lot of people have lost their jobs since March 2020, and we're here to serve them. I mean, even if they have a job and they qualify for us, my point is people that were normally, you know, that whole one paycheck away from living in poverty, so they had a stable income, but they were sort of paycheck to paycheck and they have no savings, they lose their job, they're more than likely going to be eligible for our services. So we encourage them to reach out. We've done a lot of outreach on media. Normally we do physical outreach. That's obviously not working during the pandemic. Our attorneys have been trying to get a lot of media, social media, writing articles to let people know that we're here. We've seen a huge spike in unemployment cases. We had, comparing May 2019 to May 2020, people coming to us for unemployment assistance, meaning they were denied or there's something wrong with their application. We had a 1,200% increase in so it's been a huge increase in the need. Granted, it was lower in May 2019 because we had a relatively good economy in terms of unemployment rate when you're comparing the two, but it's obviously a huge spike in the need. So a lot of those people are new to our organization. They didn't know about us, but now they heard about us on the news and they reach out to us and we help them.
And like you said, it sounds like you're going to see a much bigger influx in the next couple of months, because I don't know too much about the moratorium, but I know, stayed the eviction for a little while, but that's going to be lifted at some point. So I would imagine
right
clients that way.
And this most recent one that we're in right now for August that the governor signed, before they were, well, let me just say this one, it doesn't prevent the filing. It's almost like the tenant has to raise the defense that their inability to pay is somehow tied to COVID. I don't practice in that area. We have attorneys that do, but basically the case can still move forward. And so it's really important that people not ignore it, which I know is really tempting when you're thinking you don't have the resources to pay this, so what's the point? At least reaching out and getting some legal advice as to how best to handle it. A lot of landlords may be open to a negotiated settlement at this point, and it's really, even if you as a tenant have to move, it's really good if you could avoid the eviction on your record. People it's hard enough to find housing when you have an eviction on your record, despite your income level, if you were evicted for whatever reason. And when you're low income and have less resources at your disposal, that means you're going to have a lower sort of smaller field of housing stock to choose from. And so you don't want to put those further restrictions on yourself, because landlords do look at that.
Well, this is a big problem. I'm sure we could spend a lot of time, going through that.
No, I think the important message, because I always tell people, like, we could get overwhelmed with the numbers, and it is paralyzing. When I say something like 851,000 potential, that's overwhelming. But what I always tell people is we have to just focus on the people that are coming to us one family at a time. And so at this point, what we as an organization are focusing on is who we can serve one family at a time. And then in some instances, doesn't come up as often in the eviction for non-payment of rent context, although it could, but in other cases where there's the opportunity for systemic impact. Sometimes for the lawyers watching this, they'll know what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's not a class action necessarily, but you'll have this one case that changes the rule for everything else. And so you might have had one client. We had a case, this is a case I handled, but it was years ago, and we had 3 plaintiffs on one federal lawsuit, but we changed a Medicaid rule that impacted 8,000 kids. So we look at our work through 2 different ways. One, help the people that are coming in, but also as we're doing that, what can we do to change the system as much as we can so that it's more equitable for our clients? And so when we have systemic impact cases, as we refer to them, that's obviously that. But we do a mix of both. I mean, in 2019, we handled over 4,600 cases. So, I mean, and I want to be clear, that's not all litigation cases. That sort of runs the gamut from advice, some brief service cases where you might help and resolve the problem in 2 to 3 hours. So it's not, and then you have your extended rep, which you negotiate settlements, we litigate, we handle appeals, all that. So we stay busy.
Yeah, you stay busy. Well, I want to, before, I know we're running up on our time, so I want to, I'm sure people watching, how can, want to get involved, and they hear these numbers, and I'm sure they're like, okay, wait, I got to do something. So what's what do you all need right now? What do you all need for the future? How can people kind of get involved in all that?
Well, I think the first thing is just to learn about our organization. I think, our website is legalservicesmiami.org. It has information about what we do. And I think once you have a better idea, you could figure out what's the best path for you. To be very honest, we're a nonprofit. I should have mentioned we don't charge our clients anything. As long as you qualify, all of our services are free. And so to the extent that people are in a position to support us financially and to support our mission, we obviously welcome that. And then secondly, with the influx of cases that we're anticipating, we have a strong, robust pro bono program where we have attorneys that will work with the pro bono attorneys to make sure they feel comfortable with the cases. We will train you on a case, especially eviction cases is a big one. We will train you on cases before we hand it over, and we're there almost to answer questions as you're going through it and strategize. And so I think if for your attorneys that are watching, if they're interested in doing pro bono, we have a sort of, I like to say it's a very approachable way of doing it. We don't just hand you a case and wish you good luck. We wish you good luck, but we hold your hand through the process. And one area that I forgot to mention that's just very unique to our program is we serve small business, financially eligible small businesses and nonprofits that are serving our client community. And that's very unique for a legal aid. And like I mentioned, we were founded out of this concept of the war on poverty and removing legal barriers to economic stability. And so over the years, we've thought, okay, this is great what we do, the eviction defense, the housing, the public benefits, it's the core work of what we do. But how, for those clients that we have that we're trying to, Miami-Dade is over 90% small businesses. For those clients that we're trying to improve we talked earlier about sort of rising out of poverty and needing to be almost near perfect sometimes. For those clients that we're really trying to do that, how could we support them? Because many of them were very entrepreneurial and were starting their own businesses. And so we have started doing that, and it has been, one, extremely rewarding for us as an organization, and two, it's been a great way to engage a lot of the private bar that maybe weren't as open to taking on a litigation case because that's not their sweet spot or what they do on a daily basis, but have been extremely supportive. I mean, since the pandemic started, I think the numbers, we've served over 180 clients through the small business, and it was a program that we started with several law firms here that participated with several large law firms here in Miami and even smaller ones. So we're extremely grateful for the support of the private bar. It's been immense.
Is that a separate, does that have a special name for that program, or it's just within your own?
It's within our organization. There's something we actually lead a statewide project. It's called Florida Community Development Legal Project. And the idea is the same, but we started, our attorney that does this is one of the few that does this at affordable housing for nonprofits. And so the idea is, how could we work with other legal aids around this? We've started working with other legal aids around the state to build their capacity to do this work. And so it's been great. But our pro bono work, like I said, a lot of the firms, as you can imagine, because it's more similar to the work they do on a daily basis, they feel a little more comfortable participating in pro bono with us in this area.
Gotcha. That's awesome. That's awesome. And so before we go, I think you have a fundraiser coming up into September, possibly.
No, August 27th.
August 27th. So this might be after that happens. So we might post.
We will accept, like any good nonprofit, we will never, you don't have to give it on a specific day. Right on our website, people can donate if they want. And we really rely on that. It really helps us keep our operations going and sustain the work that we do. So we really appreciate the community support.
Awesome. Legalservicesofmiami.org?
No, legalservicesmiami.org.
Oh, okay. Legal Service Miami. Okay, perfect. And I'll put it on the show notes and everything so people can find that. Monica, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on here, and we finally getting to do this. It was fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye, you too.
Bye.
All right.
Okay. I'm terrible at that.